Our next guest speaker, uh, Jose Berlanga from Hostonian Capital. Welcome, Jose.
Hello, Rama. How are you? It's great to be here.
Yeah, doing great. Thank you very much. And little bit about Jose. So, in 1997, he co-founded Tricon Homes, turning it into an industry leader with yearly revenues of 100 million. Tricon Homes was a pivotal component in catapulting the revitalization of old neighborhoods as one of the most important pioneers in rebuilding Houston's inner city. As a CEO, he has structured deals, invested, negotiated land acquisitions and sales transactions in excess of $1 billion while managing the day-to-day operations, building close to 2,000 homes to this day, and is right now he is running multiple companies, and right now is going with Hostonian Capital. So with that, Jose, you want to add anything to your background?
Rama, thank you for the invitation. And I'd like to add that although real estate represents the bulk of my activities, I love the business world. I love entrepreneurship and everything around it, from the startup process, the operations, building businesses is a very intriguing area that has always interested me. But somehow I keep coming back to real estate. I guess it's just part of my life. So it's definitely a big part of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Share me a little bit or expand a little bit more on why you like entrepreneurship, starting small business operations, or real estate.
I really believe that entrepreneurship is a way of life, is a way of becoming the person that you want to become, where you have no limits as to how far you can reach your goals. It's a way of becoming your own self in your activities, growing as a leader, understanding the limitations or expanding your horizons in any given industry. So since I was very young, I loved the fact that I could create my own activities and build my businesses, give them my all, my soul, my spirit, and really figure out how to create opportunities, how to create my own activities. I'm one of those people that is always busy, that is always creating work. There's a very fundamental, although there are many differences between the mind of an entrepreneur and the mind of an employee, that we could spend forever discussing the different areas of these two types of activities. But one, for example, is that an entrepreneur fights the clock all day long. You don't want the day to be over. You need more hours. You need more time. You want more things to be able to happen within one day. An employee mentality wants the day to be over. You can't count the hours until you're done so that you can move on and do some more leisurely things in your life. In my mind, the leisure is in working, in building, in developing things. And this has been a very important part of how I develop my activities over the years. I am always hoping that the day is longer. I wish I had more hours in the day. I'm never done. I don't remember the day when I could say, oh, I'm done today. I can go and relax. And I will go and relax, but I always have more to do. And this helps you, allows you to become a good leader when you're always trying to improve the way you're doing things and to motivate others, to bring others to your circle of activities, and to find people that have mutual beliefs in your work ethics and in the way that you perform in the business world. So yes, this has always been important to me. I never really had the desire to work for someone else. And the last thing I'll say is it doesn't mean that it's easier. It doesn't mean that you have more freedom, because that is misinterpreted in the business world and in entrepreneurship, that once you own a business, you will have more time for yourself and that you will have all the freedom to act as you please. It's quite the contrary. There's a liberating aspect of entrepreneurship, which is that you choose when to do things, how to do things. You choose, you make your own rules, you make your own schedules. But with that being said, it requires much more effort, more passion, more time. You invest a lot more out of your life when you own and grow a business. So there are some fundamental differences in how these two operate. And I prefer, although it is definitely a lot of hard work and a sacrifice in many ways, I prefer that lifestyle.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and explanation. So would elaborate a little bit on expansion and also limitations with entrepreneurship or.
There are no limitations. It's as far as your creativity. Entrepreneurship allows you to grow, to expand, as much as your brain has the ability, as much as your time has the ability to do. And of course, there are industries that have a greater ability to expand and to grow. That always goes according to the market that you choose. For example, if you run an operation that is, or a company that is local, if you own a small shop that caters to your community, there's a passion that has to go together with that particular niche market, and you have to understand that you're attending to a smaller audience. Obviously, if you create a concept that can be multiplied and you can start going into multiple locations, multiple cities, eventually you can create a much more expansive business. So you have to understand what market you're attending to, what product you're offering, and what is the level, the ability of your business to multiply and to grow into multiple markets. I've been in both sides of the coin, where there are businesses that are easy to multiply and to take to other cities. For example, in the exporting business, where I could reach a much larger audience. When I was in the exporting of machinery for the oil and gas and petrochemical, my audience was very different than when I was in the construction business, in the residential construction, where my business was very local. In residential construction, although it's you can grow and you can build it to the level that you want, you desire, but you have to start in a very localized market, in a very small market. There are companies that begin to take their concept into other cities, into more, first you start into more neighborhoods, into more markets, then eventually you go to another city, and then you can go into other states and perhaps go national or even international. But that is always depending on what your business model is, what your desire to grow, and what you enjoy about the business. If you're, for example, in my case, an entrepreneur that likes to go into fun in different styles or types within an industry, you can go that route. If you love the technical aspects of a business, then maybe you focus on a smaller type of concept where you're more hands-on into the actual construction side of things. So building a business and growing a business has to match your particular desire or needs or personality as to how you want to approach your business model.
Yeah, got it. So you guys are focusing on construction of residential, custom, luxury, and commercial, multifamily. Share me a little bit more about where you're currently focusing and what kind of strategy you're implementing, what markets you're targeting, what's your business plan.
I like to start by saying that construction is a very specialized industry that many people confuse with being all one industry. And construction and development needs people that are specialized and that focus within their area of the business. Knowing how to build a house, even single family, may be different whether you're building in the inner city or in the suburbs, or whether you're building an entry-level home or you're building mansions. They are very different. And a lot of people that get in the business think that because they understand one aspect of the business or one sector of the business, they can do them all. And you have to be very careful. I always tell people that get into the construction business in any area of the business to try to focus and to avoid trying to cater or change concepts and go from single family to multifamily to commercial to industrial to warehouses to the different types of products that are out there, because they all have a learning curve and they're all very different. You need different contractors. You need different schedules, different budgets, different structures, different code. Everything about the construction and development business is different. And if you don't specialize, you're going to learn the hard way that there are implications that will very likely give you problems, give you headaches, and perhaps fail in some of these businesses. So I started initially in residential construction, at least in my career as a developer. My beginnings are building single family homes. It started with entry levels. The focus was inner city, transitional neighborhoods in the inner city where some of these neighborhoods start being renovated, revitalized. And that began to be the concept that I enjoyed and the concept that I learned with. Little by little, we started building pricier homes and expanding into other neighborhoods, other markets, so on and so forth. But I did this for many years, but I'm going to skip a little bit since an important subject is the multifamily. I'm going to share a little bit of how I got into the multifamily business. It was as an accident. It was a collateral damage of my activities. It was very interesting how it happened, because many of the properties, being that our business was building in the inner city, we weren't developing land, meaning that we were not buying big acreage, because in the inner cities, you don't have that much land available. You don't have open spaces. You have to buy existing developed buildings or properties where you go in and tear them down. You buy a warehouse, you buy older homes, tear them down, and rebuild something new. That is essentially what we did for many years. During that process, many of the properties that we were buying were either warehouses and commercial properties that we were tearing down to build new residential communities, but some of them were apartment complexes. Here's where it gets interesting. So what we would do in our business, if a property that we were acquired for the purpose of redeveloping it, if it had income, we would put it at the back of the line because it was producing something, so we could focus on the developments where we own properties that were not producing an income. So we would buy old dilapidated apartment complexes, whether it was smaller ones from a 12, 15, 18 unit. And then we started buying bigger properties with 40, 80, 100 apartment units. Our plan was to tear it down and to begin from scratch and to build a community. But over time, as we started somewhat diversifying and wanting to get into other markets, it just hit us. Hey, these properties are generating an income. We're learning a little bit at a time how to operate these particular multifamily units, even without ever trying. It just happened as an accident that we were already managing them, being that we had acquired them for the purpose of rebuilding them. But at some point we decided, hey, what if we just start updating them a little bit and start improving the tenant base? Start changing the tenant base and start beautifying them a little bit and start creating another section of our business that dedicates itself to managing these properties. And that's how we got in the business of multifamily as an accident without ever intending. One of the fun facts is that some of these properties, some of the best deals that we did were properties that we bought at land value, because the land was the most expensive component out of the whole equation. And that's how we priced our acquisitions. There were some neighborhoods that perhaps not many people were interested in buying some of these apartment complexes, and we knew how to appraise them at land value. But before you know it, once we started improving them and renovating some of these units, one of the techniques that we did, for example, if we had a 40, 50, or 100 unit apartment complex, we wouldn't go in and renovate all of them at the same time. This is advice that I give some of the newcomers, because all of a sudden you lose 100% of your income. So we would start renovating in blocks of 10 or 12 units at a time, so that we would still have some income to generate. And little by little, we would start updating them and raising the rents. I say this phrase that these, and we all understand, you have class A, B, C, D of multifamily living. We would buy the D class, the most dilapidated, the most deteriorated. You cannot rebuild those. You cannot rebuild these older properties, and there's no way with a replacement value. So these were wonderful properties where you can charge less rent and buy them at land value, and little by little just improve them, and it became part of our business. So that's how we got initially involved in owning multifamily properties.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, what's your take on current market situation? How exactly it is impacting, and also where exactly you're planning to navigate next 12 to 24 months?
We're going through a lot of interesting things right now. The market has become much more saturated. Let's begin with that. When I began acquiring and refurbishing some of these properties, the big players were new apartment complex builders. They were developers. They were multifamily developers. As I got navigated through this industry over the years, over the last 25 years or so, it's become very competitive, because there are more and more investors wanting to buy these older units. It's no longer a secret, whether it's in inner cities or any area of the city. It's become, let's start with the fact that it's become very competitive, and you have to get better at doing your numbers, at understanding the value per door, what to pay per door, how to invest, and how to refurbish, how to calculate your income versus your debt. And we would need to spend hours to understand, to discuss the numbers aspect of how to understand how to run budgets or projections for a high-end apartment versus a D class, for example, how to manage them, how to cost control some of them. The recommendation is that you need to do a lot more work in running numbers, comparative rents, comparative cost analysis. And I will leave it as it's become competitive from smaller players and investors, even people that have never been in this business that have cash. There's a lot of cash out there that wants to participate in the real estate business. And you have now to be aware of the amount of people, the influx of people coming into this industry. So one of those aspects is competitiveness, complexity, the growth of the market. And the biggest, perhaps the number one issue right now for everyone, not only new players, but existing players, represents interest rates. Interest rates are hurting all of us as developers and as investors, because most of these investors come in and buy them at a floating rate, unless You buy or develop a multifamily complex and you already lock in your interest rates with a Fannie Mae program, or whether it's any type of traditional banking and lending, those loans are particularly limited to a 5-year, 7-year maturity timeline. And when those expire, whether you're getting into a new deal or whether you're replacing your financing because it matured, the interest rates are much higher. So that is going to impact your cash flow. That is something that we have to closely monitor. And it's hurting a lot of companies of every segment and every size of entity right now. Interest rates are becoming a very big problem, because at some point you have to pass on that cost. If you're paying more interest to the bank to support these, there's only one way, which is increasing rents. But not everybody can afford them. Your consumer is having to pay for these higher rental rates, and you can't get them all the time. So we're all suffering through this process. I think that's perhaps one of the things that we have to watch and monitor more carefully. Anyway, but there's a lot more. We can go into new modalities. For example, one of the fun things is that this business keeps modernizing itself. And I want to talk a little bit about what is one of the new concepts that is appearing. There are one of the new things that we are currently working on are duplexes and small rental properties, because financing has become more available for small investors who want to buy their home, but also want to have income produced by their own home. There are new programs right now where you can buy a duplex, and your approval process will allow you to consider the income of the rental unit that you have within your property. So those are some of the things that are happening right now, which are being that real estate is getting so expensive and that interest rates are higher. The government has stepped in and always provided new alternatives. So imagine you can buy a house that has a separate structure inside of your property, and in order to qualify for the payment, they will allow you to consider the potential income of that additional property that's inside of your development. Those are some of the fun things that we are doing now. We're starting to build some of these duplexes that will expand on our single family and also on our multifamily portfolio.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. So any habits that are helping you to be successful?
Personal habits?
Yeah.
Definitely you have to enjoy what you're doing. It has to wake you up in the morning. You have to be able to get up excited to do what you're doing. You definitely need repetition. You need to avoid thinking that results happen very quickly. There's results happen through an accumulation of moves, of habits, of discipline, repetition. One of the number one step, perhaps, is to understand that it takes a little time to become successful. You don't normally do it overnight unless you already have a background in this business. You work for another company before, you already understand the business, you already have money to invest in. But if you have to start from the ground up, entry level, please know that it takes time. It takes time, it takes focus, it takes patience. Patience is a very big one. It can happen in 1 year. I don't measure the results of my business in one project or even in 1 year. I project them over a number of years and then average them out. And one big advice, be ready and be prepared to perhaps lose money in some of these projects. I don't make money on every single project. Eventually, you'll be able to afford having multiple developments where this one goes very well, this one goes okay, this one is not doing so well, and average them out. And little by little, you perfect the process. But one of the recommendations, as I mentioned before, specialize. Pick your niche market, pick the type of industry within real estate, and stick to it and perfect your systems rather than trying to do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Great advice. Any books that impacted you?
I never give those advice. I'm one of those people that loves reading random stuff. I am so busy. Perhaps I say this quite often that being an ADD person and being someone that is always so busy, I recommend my personal recommendation, which is going to be different than most people, is try to stay informed. I don't have, at least in this particular stage of my life, I don't have the focus to spend too much time reading. So every morning I'll read articles, I read the news, I read updates about the industry, headlines, and whenever something attracts me, I want to see how the different sectors of my industry are, how the different media is presenting information about my industry, what is my consumer reading. So I rather, and unfortunately, I'm at that stage in my life where I cannot spend too much time leisure reading. So I stay informed. I try to just grab one article a day and read the headlines and try to understand the trends within my industry. That is my personal taste and my personal recommendation, because you don't have to commit to focusing to an entire book, and you can get pieces of information about many things that are related to your industry, related to the economy, related to whether it's the micro or the macro factors of your industry.
Awesome. Thank you. So how can listeners can connect with you, Jose?
I have a YouTube account, Jose Berlanga, and joseberlanga.com is perhaps the easiest. I promote my book there. My first book, The Business of Home Building. I'm about to release my second book by the name of Dirt Rich, which is a very fun land development, land speculating, and land investing methods. Yes, joseberlanga.com is perhaps the easiest way to see a little more information about myself.
Awesome. And thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been great being with you, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.